This would be, yes, a more developed version of this idea of cogito as a crack, as a split.
One interesting question, like, still, if we still, for instance, do try to relate it to the body in some way, I understand that like cogito is neither something different from the body in the way that the spirit is different from the body in traditional metaphysics, and it's also not a bodily part and so on. But if it's pure negativity, could you still relate it to a sort of, let's say, image of the body as fragmented? Because, for instance, Dolar also takes up this idea when he talks about the constitutional subjectivity, when he talks about the night of the world, full of like this name by this youth and so on. So there appears to be some sort of like introduction of the body which is not really imaginary, which is not something that doesn't really fit there, and it's sort of like a fantasy filling in of the void of subjectivity. There appears to be some sort of materiality, but not materiality as totality, sort of.
Yes, well, Slava has to relate to this passage in the beginning about the night of the world and the partial objects which appear in this night of the world. And yes, I mean, it's an image which would well present. I mean, negativity as such, the subject as such as a principle negative, has no image. It has no presentation. If you want to present it, you present it by partialization and fragmentation, by partial objects. And partial objects, which, I mean, the idea of partial object in Freud, it's the idea of something which is, it's not opposed to the whole object. It's something which is partial in itself. It's a paradox of something which is not a part of something, but
it's not a part of the whole, it's a part.
Yeah. It's just a part. I mean, there's nothing but parts. There's no totality of which. So, this is not a bad way of presenting this principle of having these parts with no totality. You know, the principle of fracture in the body into parts which don't fit together, don't form a totality.
But I think this might be more than just an image. That it's not really like an imaginary representation of the crack, but maybe something else, you know? What I mean, that it's not really secondary, it's not, it's a sort of embodiment of the crack.
The embodiment of the crack itself.
Sort of contingent embodiment of the, you know?
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
It's very related. Because when we were speaking about drives, at a moment, it appears we were going to mention the title of this other subject, which is organs without body, as opposed to body without organs. Maybe it's linked to what he's asking, and maybe we can hold something more on that. And how this presentation of Riza to men as opposed to the proposal. I think that would be interesting as well to add.
Yes, well, yeah. Yes, well, yes, Slavita tried to start from the question of the partial object. And I mean, in a sense, what you were asking was it's also what comes first in the development. I mean, the question of the impossibility of totalization of the body, the fragmented part. I mean, there is a sort of negativity inscribed in a very sort of dramatic, paradigmatic way, precisely in what Freud describes as polymorphic version and this dissection of the body into partial objects and the impossibility of this is the night of the world. I mean, the baby is the night of the world. So the zero subjectivity of the night of the world. And yes, well, Slava tries to invert this Deleuzian formula, which stems from Artaud, about organs, that you have the opposite problem in psychoanalysis. You have these organs, and how the hell would you come to a body at all?
The idea of Lacan is that there is a prosthesis, and we were talking about prosthesis, to have the image of the whole body, that's already a prosthetic operation, like it says the mirror face, and that's already a way of adding something that was not there before.
Yes, this is the question of the mirror face, where indeed you need your mirror image in order to come to the very notion of totality of body at all. And it is, the image, the imaginary, is a kind of prosthesis. Yes. So the unity comes from outside. And it's not, there's no internal unity of the body. It's imposed on the basis of a certain image. Yes.
Well, somehow I would like to differ a little bit from this question. And as we said, Begonya and I yesterday, nowadays, as you may know, in Catalonia, there is a whole process of how to get emancipated and free from the state. So, in this sense, I think it would be really interesting if we could talk a little bit about the whole national discourse, and there is a land it's for Catalan people, and how to articulate it, because in nationalism there is always a danger of exclusion, who counts as a Catalan and who not. And in this sense, all this sort of ideology implicit somehow in some national discourses that try to articulate some sort of nation. It's quite, how to say, perverse. So it would be interesting if you could relate it to the process that you lived, how when Slovenia to shift its status as a whole state. I mean.
That's your answer.
Do I have a good advice for Catalan independence? Being a Slovene, having lived through this process. Being a disillusioned Slovene. But maybe you need independence in order to be disillusioned about it. This is not, you cannot make a shortcut around it. But, I mean, if I follow the thrust of what I was previously saying, what is a Cartesian politics? And you know that the Declaration of Human Rights in the French Revolution was a sort of realization of Cartesian politics. The first time that there was a politics introduced which was not based on identity, but on the lack of politics. So, but the symptomatic point is that the declaration is called Déclaration des droits de l'homme et des citoyens, so of man and citizen. And if you have the lack of properties on the side of man, the man, regardless of creed, nation, sex, whatever, wealth, social status, whatever, on the side of the citoyen, as a citizen, you don't have this. You have a certain positive properties you have to have in order to be a citizen. And this is the major paradox of the distance between man and citizen. This is the major paradox of all modern politics. In order to be a citizen, you can be Bluetooth born. You can be either by blood or by being born in a certain territory. So the question of Bluetooth born, which was the blood and soil, so the fascist slogan, the question of this implicit fascism is already inscribed in the very distance between homme and citoyen. So this is the problem. When you have a state, this is not a Cartesian state.
Never.
It's never a Cartesian state.
Never.
It's never a Cartesian state. And this is the major problem of how to deal with the question of nationalism. And it's a pity. This is precisely one major qualification of this subject without properties, is to belong to a certain nation. Which then, is the massive, there's a massive imaginary investment in this. Massive structure imaginary investment in this. And one can see that the forces, if you have on the one hand the negative principle of subjectivity, you have on the other hand the politics of response. It is not the negative entity without properties, which is the agent of political movements. It's always the question of what can provide response. What is the positive, somehow positive entity, the image, the fantasy, which can give some, provide, offer.
And also, I think I would add that what supports somehow the rejection of the other is that the other has a different way of enjoyment. It's not identity.
No,
It's enjoyment that you reject.
No, the problem is that
That the alterity of another
yes,
way.
of course.
No, of course.
In immigration politics, you see very
So
clearly.
this is the
you
distribution of
reject
enjoyment, which
enjoyment.
is at stake, of course, and also in the exclusion and objection, it is the matter of enjoyment that is at stake also. So
Yes, of course. Look at these blacks and Arabs. I mean, they don't wash, they have this noisy music,
That's it.
they eat this strange smelling food, they procreate like rabbits. I mean, they enjoy. I mean, this is the problem. There's the enjoyment of the other. And this is always the question of racism. I mean, the other enjoys, and there's no equal distribution of enjoyment there, because if the other enjoys, it enjoys at our expense. So this is always the idea. I mean, it's not that let everybody enjoy, let 100 flowers blossom. No. If the other enjoys, there's a trouble. I mean, the enjoyment of the other is always a trouble.
but there's also, I think, always an idea of enjoyment of when you talk about a nation, or when you say a nation is different from another. I think there's some supposition of a different kind of enjoyment, whether you say it or not. I mean, it's implicit. When you say this kind of person from this nation or this region is different to this, is that what you're discussing? Because there's something.
There's always the national thing, which is that inner treasure, which the others don't have access to. They don't quite understand what is it really to be a so one has to be born in this culture and understand our particular ways of enjoyment, which cannot be spelled out by any positive properties. And it is the thing. It's the thing on which we participate, and the others somehow can't because there's so there's always this idea of the treasure of enjoyment that one would have as a nation. But now I'm coming to the point, I mean, which is simply this, that there is a politics of cogito, which is subversive politics, but there's also a politics of response, which is always attached. One cannot do otherwise. Why has the left been so weak on this other point? If you want to provide a certain fantasy, if you want to provide certain forms of enjoyment, I mean, look at the national question. I mean, the left, since Lenin, I mean, this is historically endemic, never could tackle the national question. They always said, this is an imaginary question. We are all workers. we must have solidarity as the oppressed class, regardless of the nation. And the opposing fantasy was always so much stronger. I mean, it was very often so much stronger. So the fantasy of participating on this our thing, non-universalizable, our thing of enjoyment. And this is the problem, because cogito as a negative principle is universal. This is false. Jouissance is precisely the non-universalizable. This is what cannot be, by definition, cannot be universalized. And what politics always has to negotiate these two things. I mean, any emancipatory politics is universal. It's based on universality, on the equality, on complete disregard of particular properties of people. And this is what a solidarity can be. based on.
Yes, but there is something that I think is crucial, and in Catalonia we can see it very clearly, and it's the question of language. When you have a state that rejects your language and says, I don't want it, and I will create an education law to reject further your language and nearly to prohibit it. That's when I think that it's absolutely necessary to go away and to get rid of the state. That's enough.
But it's a matter of enjoyment.
Yes, of course.
You
It's
realize
enjoyment.
the languages are main source of enjoyment.
Yes.
So it begins with this. There's an enjoyment at stake there too.
Yeah, this is
a lot
what-
of time, of course.
This is what we can call la langue. La langue is precisely that in language which cannot be universalized. It's our particular treasure. Only we have access to it.
I have two questions. One concerning that sort of structure of structural rejection to being universalized. The question is very concrete, is whether this rejection can be quoted as or made synonymous with singularity. I mean, I was speaking of singularity here, and I'm thinking of Kierkegaard. So, it's in my mind. Now, because I guess also when you're like making the questioning this ethics of the general, as it were, and you're asking about, is it possible to build some ethics on a deviation of this general? I mean, to me, Abraham, of course, comes into mind, but maybe also Antigone. I don't know. There are two embodiments, if you want to, or unembodiments of subjectivity, which for me could stand as non-models for that kind of ethics that maybe you're asking about. I don't know. This is so, and this would add to what you were saying now. I mean, is it possible to think of this subject saying pure negativity in terms of singularity? Would it make any sense? We cannot think of it in terms of universality,